If you loved Adrian and Lucian's story, you'll love this one. A new Omega, a new Alpha, and a love that began with a beautiful lie. I used to believe love was something meant for other people, people who had enough money to buy flowers without calculating how many meals they would lose, people who did not wake before sunrise to prepare breakfast, sew torn uniforms, and count the remaining coins in a glass jar by the kitchen window. People who were not responsible for keeping another human being alive. My name is Elias Hart. I was 23 years old, an Omega, and the closest thing my little brother had to a parent. Noah was 7. He had untidy brown curls, 2 missing front teeth, and the dangerous ability to smile his way out of almost any trouble. Almost. Elias? His small voice drifted into the kitchen while I stood over the stove, attempting to turn yesterday's stale bread into something resembling breakfast. Yes? My sock disappeared. I closed my eyes. It was not even 6 in the morning. Socks do not disappear. This one did. I turned around. Noah stood in the doorway wearing his school shirt, one sock, and a deeply concerned expression. Did you look under the bed? Yes. Behind the bed? Yes. Inside the blanket? Yes. Inside your school bag? He hesitated. I folded my arms. Noah. I was keeping it safe. From what? The other sock. I stared at him for several seconds. Then he smiled. There were those missing front teeth. I tried not to laugh. I failed. Go get it before the bread burns. He rushed away while I turned back toward our ancient stove. Our home consisted of 2 rooms above an old tailor shop. The walls were thin, the roof leaked when it rained, and the pipes made terrifying sounds whenever someone used hot water. But in the mornings, when light entered through the small kitchen window and Noah hummed while eating breakfast, it almost felt perfect. Almost. I spread the last spoonful of strawberry jam across his toast and placed it in front of him. Noah looked at my plate. You don't have jam. I don't like jam. You ate it yesterday. I changed my mind. His eyes narrowed. He was only 7, but sometimes he looked at me as though he had already lived 100 years. You always change your mind when there isn't enough. My hand stopped moving. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I reached over and tapped his nose. There is enough. No, there isn't. There is enough for you. His expression softened. I could give you half. You need it. You have mathematics today. What does jam have to do with mathematics? Everything. That sounds fake. It's scientifically proven. By who? Me. Noah sighed dramatically, but he ate the toast. I drank hot water and pretended it was tea. That was how most mornings began. Small lies, gentle lies. The kind you told because the truth would make someone you loved feel guilty for being hungry. After taking Noah to school, I walked across the lower district toward Bellamy's Bakery, where I worked 6 days a week. The streets were already crowded. Carriages carried nobles toward the northern district while workers opened small shops beneath faded signs. The smell of coffee, smoke, fresh bread, and rain mixed in the air. Our city was divided by a river. The northern side held the estates of wealthy alphas, government buildings, gardens, and expensive shops, where a single coat cost more than I earned in a year. The southern side held everyone else. I rarely crossed the river. There was nothing for me on the other side, or so I believed. Bellamy's Bakery was warm, loud, and always smelled like cinnamon. Mrs. Bellamy had hired me 3 years earlier after finding me asleep outside her back door during a winter storm. She never mentioned that day. Neither did I. She was a beta woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a soft heart she tried very hard to hide. You're late, she said as I tied my apron. I looked at the clock. I'm 4 minutes early. Then you're late for tomorrow. That makes no sense. It doesn't have to. I own the bakery. I smiled. Yes, Mrs. Bellamy. She placed a paper bag on the counter. Inside were 2 sweet rolls, still warm. These were shaped incorrectly. They were perfectly round. I understand. Take them home. Of course. And don't thank me. I dislike emotional displays before noon. I pressed my lips together. Yes, Mrs. Bellamy. I put the bag inside my satchel, already imagining Noah's face when he saw them. That was the morning I first met Kylus. It began with rain. Not gentle rain. The sky opened so suddenly that people ran from the streets, covering their heads with bags and newspapers. Within minutes, the bakery was filled with customers seeking shelter. I moved between tables carrying bread, coffee, and bowls of hot soup while Mrs. Bellamy shouted at anyone who dripped water near her ovens. Then the front door opened. A man stepped inside. He was tall. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was the way the room seemed to become smaller around him. He wore a dark coat without any visible crest, simple black gloves, and boots covered in rainwater. His hair was almost black, slightly too long near his eyes, and his expression was calm in a way that made everyone else seem unnecessarily loud. He was an alpha. I knew before his scent reached me. Cedarwood, rain, something warm beneath it. The scent was controlled, faint enough not to overwhelm the Omegas in the room, but I still felt it. A quiet pull beneath my ribs. He looked around the crowded bakery. Every table was occupied, except the small one near the kitchen where I had been folding napkins before the storm began. I approached him. You can sit there. His eyes settled on me. They were gray, not cold gray, storm cloud gray. The kind of color the sky became just before sunlight returned. Thank you, he said. His voice was low but gentle. Most wealthy-looking alphas spoke to workers without really seeing them. This man looked directly at me. What can I bring you? He studied the menu written on the wall. What do you recommend? The cinnamon bread. Is it good? The best in the city. Mrs. Bellamy shouted from behind the counter. It is the best in the kingdom. The stranger raised one eyebrow. I lowered my voice. She becomes competitive when it rains. I heard that, Mrs. Bellamy yelled. For the first time, the stranger smiled. It transformed him. The seriousness disappeared from his face and a small line appeared beside his left eye. My heart did something strange, something embarrassing. I quickly looked down at my notepad. 1 cinnamon bread. And coffee? Milk? No. Sugar? His gaze remained on me. 1. I nodded and walked away before he could see the sudden warmth in my cheeks. He stayed until the rain stopped. He drank 2 cups of coffee and ate every crumb of the cinnamon bread. When he left, he placed several coins on the table. Too many. I chased him outside. Sir! He turned beneath the bakery's awning. Rain fell behind him, silver against the street. You left this. I held out the additional coins. His eyes moved from my hand to my face. It is for you. You paid for the food already. It is a tip. It is too much. Is there a law limiting how much a person may tip? No. Then keep it. I can't. Why? The question surprised me. Because you might need it. Something unreadable crossed his face. I will survive. So will I. For a few seconds, we stood facing each other. Then he took 1 coin from my palm and closed my fingers around the rest. A compromise. Before I could argue, he walked away. I watched him disappear into the rain. Only when he was gone did I realize I had never asked his name. I thought that would be the end of it. It should have been. But the next morning, he returned. The sky was clear. The bakery was nearly empty. He sat at the same table. When I approached him, he looked up from a book. 1 cinnamon bread and coffee, I said. 1 sugar. I remember. I hoped you would. My face became warm again. I pretended not to notice. When I brought his order, he held out his hand. Kylus, I looked at it. Is that your name? No, I introduced myself to everyone using random words. A laugh escaped me. He smiled. I placed my hand in his. Elias. His palm was warm. His grip was careful. The moment our skin touched, that strange pull returned. Stronger this time. Kylus felt it too. I knew because his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly. But neither of us said anything. After that, he came every morning. Sometimes he read, sometimes he watched the street. Sometimes he asked me questions while I cleaned the nearby tables. He told me he worked in trade. He said his family owned a small business in the northern district. I imagined a respectable shop, perhaps textiles or imported tea. His coats were well made, but he wore no jewelry. He carried no servant's mark, and he often arrived on foot. He did not seem poor, but he did not behave like a noble. He listened when I spoke, really listened. When I told him that Mrs. Bellamy's oven had been broken for a week, he asked the next morning whether it had been repaired. When I mentioned Noah's mathematics test, he remembered to ask how it went. He received a perfect score, I told him proudly. Kylus leaned back in his chair. Then the jam worked. I stared at him. How do you know about the jam? You were speaking to Mrs. Bellamy yesterday. You were listening? You were standing 2 steps away. You looked like you were reading. I can do 2 things at once. I'm beginning to distrust you. That would be wise. He said it lightly, but something in his eyes changed. It lasted only a moment. At the time, I did not understand it. Kylus met Noah 3 weeks later. My shift had ended and I was preparing to collect him from school when the bakery door opened. Noah rushed inside, followed by his teacher. Elias? I dropped the cloth in my hand. What happened? I'm not dead. His teacher looked exhausted. That was not the question. Apparently, a water pipe had broken at the school, and the children had been dismissed early. Noah had convinced his teacher that he knew the way to the bakery. He was soaked from the knees down and carrying a paper crown. Then he noticed Kylus. Who is that? Noah, I warned. What? You cannot point at people. I'm not pointing. He was absolutely pointing. Kylus closed his book. I'm Kylus. Noah approached him suspiciously. Are you an alpha? Yes. Do you bite people? I nearly choked. Noah. Kylus's mouth twitched. Not without permission. I covered my face. Mrs. Bellamy laughed so loudly from the kitchen that she started coughing. Noah considered the answer. Good. Then he held up his paper crown. I'm the king. Kylus nodded seriously. I thought I recognized you. You have to bow. I waited for him to refuse. Instead, Kylus placed one hand over his heart and bowed his head. Your Majesty. Noah beamed. From that day onward, Noah loved him. Kylus began arriving near the end of my shifts rather than the beginning. The 3 of us would walk home together. He taught Noah how to skip stones across the river. He helped him build a wooden birdhouse from scraps Mrs. Bellamy had saved behind the bakery. He listened to endless stories about school, imaginary dragons, and a classmate named Arthur who apparently cheated at marbles. I tried to remind myself that it meant nothing. Kylus was kind. That was all. Then one evening, Noah fell asleep on his shoulder. We were sitting near the river watching the lights appear across the bridge. Noah had spent the afternoon running in circles and declaring himself commander of an invisible army. Now his cheek rested against Kylus's chest, and one of his small hands clutched the front of Kylus's coat. He likes you, I whispered. I like him. He usually doesn't trust alphas. Kylus looked down at him. Why? I watched the river. Our father was an alpha. Kylus remained silent. He left after our mother died. Noah barely remembers him. And you? I remember enough. The words came out colder than I intended. Kylus did not ask for more. He removed his scarf and carefully tucked it around Noah. The tenderness of the gesture made my chest ache. You're good with him, I said. I had younger cousins. Had? They grew up. You make that sound tragic. It was. They became annoying adults. I laughed softly. He looked at me. The warmth in his expression faded into something deeper. The air suddenly felt different. The sounds of the river, the carriages, and the people crossing the bridge seemed to disappear. Elias. My name sounded different in his voice. I should have looked away. I didn't. Kylus leaned closer, slowly, giving me enough time to stop him. My heart beat so hard I was certain it would wake Noah. Then Kylus paused. We have an audience. I looked down. Noah's eyes were open. He stared at us from Kylus's arms. You can kiss. Noah. What? Mrs. Bellamy said you've been staring at each other for weeks. I was going to have a very serious conversation with Mrs. Bellamy. Kylus laughed. Not the small, restrained laugh I had heard before. A real one. His whole face softened, and I realized I would do almost anything to hear that sound again. Our first kiss happened 2 days later. Kylus walked me home after Noah had fallen asleep at Mrs. Bellamy's apartment downstairs. Snow had begun to fall, the first snow of the year. Tiny white flakes rested in Kylus's dark hair as we stood beneath the narrow awning outside my building. Neither of us seemed willing to say goodbye. You should go, I whispered. I know. It will snow harder soon. I know. You live far away. I know. I smiled. Do you know any other words? Yes. Prove it. His gaze dropped to my lips. May I kiss you? My heart nearly stopped. I had imagined the moment too many times, while washing dishes, while carrying bread, while lying awake beside the wall that separated my bed from Noah's. But the real question frightened me, not because I did not want him, because I wanted him too much. Kylus, you can say no. I know. I will still return tomorrow. That isn't what worries me. What does? I looked at him. I don't have much room in my life for something temporary. His expression became serious. I am not asking for temporary. You barely know me. I know you give your brother the larger portion of every meal. My breath caught. I know you pretend not to be cold so he can wear your scarf. I know you hum when you need dough, but only when you think no one is listening. I know you always choose the chipped cup because you save the good ones for customers. Kylus, I know you are the kindest person I have ever met. No one had ever spoken to me like that, as though my small choices mattered, as though I mattered. I'm afraid, I admitted. His hand rose slowly, giving me time to move away. I stayed still. His fingers touched my cheek. So am I. Then he kissed me, softly. No possession, no demands, only warmth. As I waited to cross the street, a black carriage passed. There was a silver crest on the door, a wolf beneath a crown. Inside sat Kylus. He wore a formal black coat embroidered with silver thread. Beside him sat an older alpha I did not recognize. 2 armed guards rode behind the carriage. Kylus, I called his name. His head turned. For one brief second, our eyes met through the window. Then the carriage continued. I stood frozen in the street. Perhaps I was mistaken. Perhaps it was not him. But I knew his face. I knew the way his eyes widened when he was surprised. I knew the small scar near his eyebrow. It was Kylus. That evening, he came to the bakery. He wore his ordinary dark coat. No embroidery, no crest, no guards. You're back early, I said. His expression changed when he saw my face. Yes. How was the journey? Uneventful. The lie slipped between us, quiet, perfectly shaped. I waited. Perhaps he would explain. He did not. Were you outside the city? Yes. My chest tightened. I wanted to confront him. But Noah was sitting at a nearby table drawing Kylus with a sword and enormous wings. Mrs. Bellamy was watching us from behind the counter, and I was afraid that asking the question would destroy the answer I wanted. So I smiled. I missed you. The guilt in Kylus's eyes lasted less than a second. I missed you too. The second lie came a week later. A man entered the bakery shortly before closing. He wore the uniform of a northern household, complete with polished boots and white gloves. When he saw Kylus sitting near the window, he stopped. "My lord!" Kylus stood so quickly that his chair struck the floor. The man's face went pale. Kylus crossed the room and spoke to him in a voice too low for me to hear. The man bowed, not politely, deeply, the way servants bowed to nobles. When Kylus returned, I looked at him. "My lord?" "A mistake. He seemed to know you. He works for one of my clients." "Do your clients usually bow to you?" Kylus's jaw tightened. "Some people are overly formal." Again I waited. Again he gave me nothing. That evening he kissed my forehead before leaving. His lips lingered there. It felt almost like an apology. I lay awake long after Noah fell asleep. I told myself there were explanations. Perhaps Kylus worked for a noble family and was embarrassed by it. Perhaps his relatives were wealthy, but he had chosen a simpler life. Perhaps he feared I would treat him differently. But the more excuses I created, the more foolish I felt. Love could survive poverty. It could survive distance. It could survive two people living in different worlds. But could it survive the truth being deliberately hidden? The final sign came on Noah's birthday. We could not afford a large celebration. Mrs. Bellamy made a small chocolate cake. I decorated the kitchen with paper stars, and Kylus promised to arrive before sunset. Noah waited near the window wearing his best shirt. Every few minutes he asked the time. "He'll come," I assured him. "I know." But sunset came, then darkness. The candles melted into the cake. Kylus did not arrive. Noah tried to pretend he was not disappointed. "We can eat it tomorrow." "It's your birthday. We're eating it tonight." "But Kylus won't get any. We'll save him a piece." At last I lit the candles. Noah closed his eyes and made a wish. Before he blew them out, he whispered, "I wish Kylus could be our family." My throat closed. Noah opened his eyes. Was I not supposed to say it? No, I forced a smile. It was a beautiful wish. After he fell asleep, I remained at the table. Kylus's piece of cake sat beneath an overturned bowl. The clock passed midnight. There was no message, no explanation. I was still sitting there when someone knocked. I opened the door. Kylus stood in the hallway. There was blood on his sleeve. Not much, but enough. "Kylus?" "It isn't mine." His voice was strained. His hair was disordered and his scent was sharp with anger. Behind him at the bottom of the stairs waited two men in black uniforms. They were armed. My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "I cannot explain." "You missed Noah's birthday." "I know. He waited for you." Pain moved across Kylus's face. "I know." "Who are those men?" "They are here for my protection." "Protection from what?" He looked toward them, then back at me. "Elias, please, not tonight." "Then when?" "Soon." "You keep saying that without using the word." "What word?" "Truth." The silence between us became unbearable. Kylus reached for me. I stepped back. His hand fell. "Who are you?" I whispered. "You know who I am." "No, I know you like cinnamon bread. I know you drink coffee with one sugar. I know you pretend to hate children's stories, but you remember every character Noah invents." My voice shook. "But I don't know where you live. I don't know what your business is. I don't know why servants call you my lord. I don't know why armed men are standing outside my home. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't. I was trying to protect you." "From what?" Kylus said nothing. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You cannot protect someone with lies. His eyes closed briefly. When he opened them again, they were filled with something that frightened me more than anger, desperation. "I know." "No, you don't." "I know exactly what my silence has done." "Then tell me." He looked at Noah's closed bedroom door. "I cannot." The words shattered something inside me. I had defended him in my thoughts. I had created excuse after excuse because I loved him, because I wanted the man who repaired broken pipes and bowed to paper kings to be real. But perhaps that man had never existed. Perhaps Kylus had walked into our small life because he was bored. Perhaps we were an escape from his real world, a bakery Omega and his little brother, something simple to visit before returning to black carriages and armed guards. "You should leave," I said. His face went still. "Elias, please. I will explain everything." "When?" He did not answer. I nodded. That is what I thought. I began to close the door. Kylus placed his hand against it, not forcing it open, only stopping it for one final second. Do not mistake my fear for a lack of love. My breath caught. He had never said that word before, neither had I. The hallway seemed to tilt beneath my feet. You don't get to say that now. It is true. How would I know? Kylus stared at me. His eyes were red, though he had not cried. I suppose you wouldn't. His hand slowly left the door. I closed it, then I locked it. For several seconds, I stood in the darkness with my hand against the wood. I heard nothing from the hallway, no footsteps, no whispered orders, only silence. When I finally looked through the curtain, Kylus was standing in the street. Snow fell around him. The two guards waited beside a black carriage bearing the silver wolf beneath a crown. Kylus did not enter it. He looked up at our window, at me. Even though I knew he could not see me behind the curtain, his gaze found the exact place where I stood. His face held no anger, only grief, a terrible, silent grief that almost made me open the door. Almost. But then one of the guards approached him. "My lord, the council is waiting." My lord. The words confirmed everything. Kylus lowered his head. And before he turned away, I saw him reach inside his coat. He removed something small, a blue paper crown, the one Noah had made for him weeks earlier. He had kept it. My heart broke so suddenly that I had to cover my mouth to keep from making a sound. Kylus held the crown in his hands as though it were something precious. Then the richest, most powerful-looking alpha I had ever seen bowed his head over a child's crumpled gift and cried. That was the moment I understood the most painful truth of all. Kylus had lied to me, but his love might have been real, and I had no idea which truth would destroy us more. Because while I stood behind that window telling myself I had made the right decision, Kylus was returning to a life he had never wanted, a title he could not escape, and a secret that might make loving me more dangerous than leaving me forever.